love, unity, civilization, and total chaos.
Yeah. Now, are these cameras really close, or am I feeling claustrophobic? They're really close. They're really on top of us tonight. Whoa. We better do a good show, right? Oh, you got the googly eyes. Don't hit me with the googly eyes.
No, it's my Lord gave it to me.
Yes, I know.
I like
it's pretty.
The
and you
Lord.
have to tell me what he said to you. Hey, there's a new war on drugs. Think this one's going to work?
Well, he has no plan. It's just lip service.
Well, the last one was a no-plan war on drugs, except to get a lot of money funneled through to the law enforcement agencies, which they did. They became super armed. They became super militarized, and more drugs hit the street, and the price of drugs went up.
But I feel like doctors play the Hippocratic Oath, so it starts there. They have to be careful.
Yeah.
How often they're prescribing these opioid drugs.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
yes, because as I was saying to Jeannie before, when I was young, when I was a kid, most of the overdose deaths came from illegal drugs. Now, half of the opioid deaths, and I believe there's something like 33,000 a year.
Yeah.
There's either 90 or 100 or 170 per day, depending on who you believe. But half of those deaths are legal prescription drugs,
and
which is really scary.
And when they cut them off, and there's no like naloxone plan or anything, which is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
So they're just kind of cut off, and they're just kind of like scrounging like tweakers looking for.
They'll take anything.
Yeah.
They'll take anything they can get off the street. So it's kind of becoming the opposite of when, 30, 40 years ago, the first war on drugs, where it was illegal drugs. Now it's legal drugs and they're being prescribed. So,
but it's a problem because you can legally buy this. It's basically synthetic heroin.
Yes, it is.
Oxycodone, and it's not just oxycodone. It's like Percocet, Demerol. You got to be really careful when you take these.
That stuff is super addictive, and hey, it's a multi-level problem because, look, you go to the doctor. You pay a fee, or a fee comes off your insurance, but somebody's paying for that doctor visit. You have a problem. You don't want you don't want to walk away from the doctor and have the doctor tell you that you need to take a warm bath. That happened to me once, and I didn't have insurance, and I paid, whatever it was for the doctor's visit, and she told me, take warm baths. That's not what I wanted to hear after canceling my plans for the day, laying out good money to go to a doctor for a solution. It may have been a perfectly fine solution, but that was not what I wanted to hear. And that most doctors know. I can't even remember what it was about, to tell you the truth. But I remember being angry. I was like, I paid, whatever it was to have her tell me to take a warm bath, I wanted to walk away with some kind of a solution, and that solution usually is some kind of a prescription in a bottle that you can take immediately.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem right there. The whole healthcare system is profit driven, and that's the big problem. There wouldn't be all these oxycodone, there wouldn't be all these illegal drugs and legal drugs being abused if the pharmaceutical industry wasn't out to make a killing.
And FDA also has to kind of go after it, because if you have a small town and you're having 50,000 pills to a pharmacy that maybe fills 200 scripts a day.
Right, yeah.
You gotta just watch out for these.
A town in West Virginia, population 2,000, yet they had, through that town, came through 19 million Oxycontin pills. 19 million.
Nobody caught it.
Well, it was caught, but the thing is, it's legal.
The
because the pharmaceutical companies and the doctors seek out states with looser laws about this, so they can take
What do they
advantage.
need that many for? What do they have unless it's a plain clinic?
Yeah, it's not for that town. It goes out. It gets mailed out of that town.
Okay, it's like it's a like capsule.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a really multi-tiered problem. As I said, Trump is not doing anything about it. Most of the money that he is, there's a $57,000 fund that they're going to tap into, a whole $57,000.
That won't even treat one dumb kid on rehab.
It costs more for the Secret Service to clean Donald Trump's golf shoes than $57,000.
You know,
the rest of the money is coming out of Medicaid, where most of the drug abuse money comes from anyway. So they're tapping the same well.
But I feel like a lot of these people, they kind of bring it on themselves too. I mean,
there is personal responsibility.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids that are just in high school and they're bored. I'm gonna take some pills with some weed, and then they're 21 and they get hooked on this stuff, and they're just like tweaking. You know what I mean? And they're being kicked out of their parents' house, and they're doing nothing with their lives.
Doing nothing with their lives.
And they're just tweaking.
And I have to admit, when I was a teenager, I did go through the medicine cabinet and found a couple of interesting things, but I didn't, that wasn't the end of my life, and that wasn't the end of my life story,
but yeah, it's just...
I found a couple of things, and that was it, I didn't go crazy, and I certainly didn't take enough from my parents to notice. But
I mean, it's one thing to take condoms from mom and dad's stash. This is another, it's a totally different thing.
Right, exactly.
But it's just bizarre. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of personal responsibility attached, and it also, you have to look at the age of when they started. Obviously, if they were 14 when they started, dumb kid, what I mean? It's dumb kids
when they
being
started,
dumb.
started experimenting or started getting a prescription.
Yeah, so really, it really depends. Like most of the people that are like prescription, it's probably from a car accident, and their back is off alignment.
A lot of back problems.
Yeah, so it's probably that, and it's like if it leads to that, I get it, because some of these people, like compression doesn't even work when you have like discs, like herniated discs and all that stuff.
Back is very complicated.
It's like sometimes you just feel it. So for some of these people, so they need these just to get through the day.
So
like
our Attorney General has kind of agrees with you about personal responsibility. He said that it's really up to the individual, and what he encourages is a phrase I've heard before from some other administration: just say no. Do you think that's going to work?
When you're hooked on it?
Hasn't worked before? Like, no, it has not worked before.
I mean, that's mainly geared towards like fifth graders that are in DARE.
Yeah.
Like that's like basically like...
Or it should be, yeah. I
mean,
think
that's
Nancy
kind of
Reagan,
like, that's for...
who originated the phrase, I think she was telling the world but that they should just say no.
But it's really kind of like directed at like elementary school children or middle school children, Now,
all this talk about, opioids and everything, it brings to mind our vice president when he was governor of Indiana. When he took over, when he was sworn as governor, he knew in southern Indiana there was a huge opioid problem, a huge addiction problem. There had been an outbreak of HIV mainly from people sharing dirty needles. This turned into an epidemic, one of the highest spikes of HIV in recent years.
And he did nothing, right?
Well, basically, he dragged his feet for 2 months while local officials, while church officials, and while the Center for Disease Control all told him, you have to do something, you have to open up needle exchanges, because as long as people are using dirty needles, this is going to spread and spread, and you're going to get hundreds and hundreds of more cases. Basically, he did nothing for 2 whole months, despite the urging of the local churches, local elected officials, and the Center for Disease Control. He ignored all that. For 2 months, he drags his feet. Then he announces, under a lot of pressure,
he prayed.
Well, I'm going to talk to Jesus about this. Ooh. And he actually did that for 3 days while more people got infected, more people died. And then finally he he allowed a limited needle exchange
But
program.
isn't there-
Not even what the CDC recommended.
But was the FDA or federal money going to be coming? Because Indiana could have been broke for all we know.
There could have, if he had declared a state of emergency, yes, the money would have been coming.
I mean, you got to think about it from an economic.
And the CDC is a federal agency. Once they make a recommendation, yes, you can get the money, which is part of the point today, because Trump declared not a national emergency like he said he would in August and earlier this month. He said 3 times, I'm going to declare a national emergency. No, he declared a national health emergency, meaning no additional funds. They have that $57,000 fund.
Signed it.
And signed it, and showed it off and everything. And basically, the funds are going to come from Medicaid, where they're coming from right now. So no additional funds, no.
But I mean,
people were urging that naloxone, I think it is.
Naloxone,
be stockpiled in places where they have these kind of problems, and none of that. And this has been proven to save people's lives.
But honestly, like, is it even economically, from a health economic standpoint, is it even worth it? Because some of these people, like, they've been on heroin for 10 years. They don't really do much with their lives. They spend their whole day tweaking. And if you send them to, like, a clinic and you're going to spend, like, $20,000 on, rehabbing them for 4 months, like, what's the recidivism rate? Like, they're going to go, the relapse rate's very high.
There's a point that you have an absolute valid point.
So it's, like, even worth it.
But it's that versus taking care of these people for the rest of their lives. They're not going to be earning money. They're going to be on public assistance. They're going to be in the way, maybe committing crimes. Wherever they are, they're going to make people around them an unpleasant experience. So, yes, I mean, it's one thing to say, well, if we treat them, they might come back. They might go back on the street. And this happens all the time.
And it's like, why? You're gonna really, but that's the thing.
In the long term, it does help. And other countries that have legalized drugs and have, you know, the United Kingdom for years, for the past 50 years, if you are a junkie in the UK, they don't want you on the street. They don't want you stealing. They don't want you breaking into people's cars or money.
They don't want setting fires from your meth lab.
Right. So what do? They give out heroin legally, and they have for more than 50 years, since the early 60s, or maybe before that. They give out heroin legally, and so they can monitor the people, they can monitor their health, and hopefully rehabilitate them. Now, some people are going to be beyond rehabilitation, but most of these people can be.
They change the brain chemistry, and then it changes the receptors to the point where they're always going to feel like they're going to need it.
I have read about that, and I'm not a scientist. I don't know enough about biology to say if that's right or wrong. I've seen evidence of that in some people.
Well, I mean, that's why these people are hooked, and they spend their whole days like looking around for some money to get the,
Right, yeah. I mean, that is the problem with drugs. It takes over your whole life. It becomes the most important thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why people abuse their kids, abandon their kids,
and it's
sell their kids into, slavery, whatever. It does not make for a healthy environment for anybody around.
And you add AIDS to it. Like, if you have HIV, it's like, are you even worth saving? Because it's like, you're not going to contribute anything to society, and on top of it, you're going to cost Medicaid like $100,000 in a year, which is someone's
somebody's
salary.
Watching, because I think somebody, if you have a comment on this, call us up at 212-757-1393, because what you're saying is a little bit on the edge. Now,
but it's a lot of money, and
it is a lot of money.
And there's plenty of other old people that have worked really hard in this country that have to choose between their heart medicine and eating, and they have to meal with wills. Like I don't know.
I'm in total agreement with the people that say that health care should be a right, and it should be taken care of by the government, like it is in other places. I'll bring up the UK again. Or France. You basically get cradle to grave health care. It's not an expense, and it's not something that you have to plan for. And You speak to people in the UK and in Britain. Some of them will tell you, "Oh, it's horrible. The National Health Service is horrible, and we wish you had your system." But
it's only horrible when you need a transplant.
if you need, for some cases it's worse, but for most cases, for most people, it is better than our obscenely profit-driven system, where we pay many times more for the same drugs that in India or Canada or Mexico, right across the border, you get it a tenth of the price. And the big insult to injury is that our tax money went into developing those drugs. And who are they making? Who are they making the most money off of? Americans.
Well, on top of
there's something really obscenely wrong with that.
Well, on top of it, like the pharmaceutical industry, once in 1996 or 1997, when they were able to directly advertise to consumers, that just became like a whole nother thing. Right. And on top of it, like
ask your doctor about
AIDS medication is also really much more expensive here than it is in other other countries. And and if you go to sub-Saharan Africa, those people make $1 a day, and they get like, the government, World Health Organization, managed to get them.
Right,
get it for them like free. They have
no other option. And the thing is, it's a lot of this is preventative. If you don't take care of somebody who has a bad drug habit, things are going to get worse. You're going to spend money either, in medical bills. They're going to be on the public dole. They're going to be in prison. They're going to be causing problems. So, like I say, countries like the Netherlands, like the UK, they have said, okay, we're taking the long-term approach. We're going to take care of these people. We're going to rehabilitate as many as we can, and this will save us money in the long run. This will save us money from crime.
Hoping it'll work.
But it has worked. Otherwise, they would have dumped this. There's a lot of pressure in places like the UK that that they have limited funds, and it's going to be more limited now that they've entered into Brexit.
Oh yeah, no more Europe.
No more Europe. Well, no more UK and Europe. And that was another hasty election that a lot of people
kind of regret now.
Very much regret.
Not really...
Like the next morning, the people were saying, especially the young people that didn't vote, it's like, what? We did what? We voted for what? Anyway.
What?
Yeah. So now the other thing that came up this week is, well, we can't ignore Puerto Rico.
Oh no.
As the president and most of the government has. They're treating Puerto Rico like an unwanted cousin, and as I said on the air many weeks ago, maybe the president doesn't even know that Puerto Rico is part of America.
I think, what's really funny? I think Cuomo and de Blasio, they don't agree on a lot, but they agree here, and they've been great about opening the doors and giving young people from Puerto Rico free college tuition, or college tuition that'll be at state rates. You know what I mean?
And they know the constituency too, because how many Puerto Ricans live here? So yes,
that's true. I just thought they were being nice.
They just thought they were being nice. No politician is really nice.
But they've made New York. I'm like, hey, if you've lost everything, come here at least. You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
and it makes
I thought that was really nice and welcoming.
But
new voter base, I guess.
New voter base, of course. That's a great gesture, but it would be better if we could make Puerto Rico livable again.
Oh, yeah.
It's more than a month. Something like 80% of the island doesn't have running water.
Still, and no electricity?
No electricity in large portions of the island. They're doing operations with flashlights. Yeah, I mean, it's really bad down there. So, what would solve this? More water, more electricity. A $300 million contract was awarded yesterday to a company that nobody has ever heard of.
Oh.
It's called Whitefish. It is in the town of, let me look this up, it's in Montana, and it's in the same hometown as Secretary of Interior Ryan Zinke lives. This guy is also, this Whitefish Energy, they also have connections to Tom Price and also
okay.
Rick Perry, the energy commissioner.
Oh,
But basically,
wow.
$300 million contract to this company that has 2 employees. They have a grand total of 4.5 miles. They fixed a grand total of 4.5 miles of power lines.
Oh, what dinky little town was that in the United States?
Somewhere out in the West. I don't know. Might have been a substantial job, but
this smells like Halliburton and Donald Rumsfeld on a much smaller scale.
Yeah. Now, previously, the biggest profit this company made was $1 million in a year, and they do it with subcontractors. So this is a contract 300 times bigger than their best year. This company subcontracts people.
Looks like
A lineman, a guy who works on the wires, gets $300 an hour, $462 an hour for a subcontracted supervisor. His supervisor gets $462. They'll probably charge about $400 per worker in per diem, food, and housing costs. With very little experience fixing power lines. How did this come about? Ryan Zinke's buddy.
Aww.
Are they qualified to do it? Who knows?
No.
They have 4.5 miles of experience. That's it.
How many miles is Puerto Rico? It sounds a lot larger than 4 miles.
Probably thousands of miles. Basically, the whole electrical grid, meaning the high tension wires and the things that carry the big cables that you see on big towers that carry the high voltage. That's what needs to be rebuilt. When they say a grid, that's how, that's what needs to be rebuilt. The big high tension wires that carry it from town to town and from big towns to little municipalities. The distribution grid, that's what has to be rebuilt in Puerto Rico. And that's really
it's taking so much time, and like a lot of people, they're just lost everything, and a lot of people are fleeing. You know how many those cruise ships are just, it's like the Staten Island ferry, no one's coming back in.
And do you blame them?
No.
I mean, there is no reason to stay there, and especially if you have kids or you have older parents or something. If you could afford to get off that island, yes, because it's obvious to everybody.
Well, they do. They can afford. I mean, FEMA will give you something, though minimal. They're going to give you something. You know what I mean?
Something to relocate.
Yeah, they're going to give you money to get off. Well, they'll get you off for free, and then they'll give you some aid to rebuild, though not much.
Not much, yeah. And most of those places, I mean, things that we don't think about, like mattresses. They had patients sleeping on wet mattresses because everything got wet there. Roofs were torn off and everything. So horrible situation in Puerto Rico. And what is the Trump administration doing? Making money off of it, making sweetheart deals to their good friends.
I thought he was really good at building things.
He's really good at throwing paper towels.
He's really. I'm a builder.
They built these prototypes of the wall out west, and somebody said, somebody posted a picture and said they should leave these things up as monuments to stupidity, which is true. But they built sections of the wall somewhere, in California or somewhere.
Or are they going to build
prototypes?
Are they going to spend a lot of money to build a wall between North Dakota and Canada?
Maybe.
They're probably going to really. You need because that's the most middle of nowhere you can get.
Right. Yeah.
You have more animals passing through that border than people.
Oh yeah. And I mean the border with Mexico is it's 10% of what it was in past decades. People coming over that border, it's way down. I'm not saying it's not a problem, but it is way down, people actually physically crossing the border, because they know there's border patrols. They know a lot of people are going to get arrested. They know a lot of the people who are, I forget what their name is, the people who are paid smugglers who will jam 50 people into the back of their truck. They know they're really dangerous, and how many people have died like that. So the number of people actually crossing the border and the necessity for a damn wall has decreased like something like 90% in recent years.
It would just be a waste of money.
Well, of
but
course it
you got to
would, but
realize Trump is really good
Trump,
at building things.
And really good at wasting
I
money,
mean,
too.
are people that dumb enough to be like, I'm going to build a wall?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, they were dumb enough to elect him unless things were really pulled at by, by the Russians and by Facebook ads or something like that.
Did you watch 60 Minutes in
No,
the
I did
past
not.
month? All right, so I think it was like the head social media guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was basically, that's what he did all day. He would, like he was really good at what he did,
Right.
very, very talented, and he kind of came out of nowhere. He would just like change little words around to each.
So he
specific,
repackaged stories.
yeah, into
Yeah.
Facebook ads, into very meticulous towns, states based on racial makeup. So I mean,
right.
it's no
Yeah.
different than Nestle. It's like, oh, we're gonna target these like pink chocolate chips to teenage girls 12 to
Right.
16 that identify with these certain music groups.
Yeah.
It's like the same sort of thing, except it was
Super demographics,
yeah. So it's the same thing with an election that he was doing it. He could have been doing that for Nestle or
Now, was this
a
guy
soft drink.
Was this guy
Well, he
hired
worked.
by the Russians?
No, he was hired by Trump because
Trump,
he worked
okay.
on some other, like a lot of like spiked. No, I think a lot of the Trump hotels or resorts had a spiking in
Yeah.
attendance or customers or something. So
Right.
he worked under the Trump administration for a long time and then ended up working on his campaign. But the way he did his job and the way he talks about it, he's like, yeah, we were, a lot of our employees were staying at Facebook headquarters, and a lot of the Republicans that work there wanted to help us. They would use their expertise. So, I mean, outside of the Russians, like on a domestic level, they were just treating Trump like any other product.
And there's nothing illegal
You know what
about
I mean?
that.
Yeah.
The thing that is disturbing is outside influence. A lot of these ads
Yeah.
were paid for in rubles. In the United States, there
It's
is
a
a law. Every ad that you see on television for a candidate, they have to say who pays for it.
Yeah.
This ad paid for by the committee to elect,
mean-
something like that. That's the law, but it has nothing to, only ads on TV and radio, not online.
The thing is, I think a lot of what that guy was doing is what was similar to Russians doing it from a different angle.
Right, yeah.
So it's like, people think it's the Russians, but they were just buying ads. He was doing the same thing as the Russians were doing.
yeah.
Russians were just
And there's
kind of
nothing
like,
illegal about what
Yeah.
he did, because
Yeah.
that's normal marketing.
and that's
yeah.
like his job. He
And the
would work for
Democrats
Trump.
had their own version
They
of
did
this
the
guy.
same thing too.
Yeah.
They probably targeted women that identify with feminism and Gloria Steinem and things
Right.
that they like.
Yeah.
It's you
and
know what
spread
I
lies
mean?
about Hillary. We're down to our last 15 seconds.
But I mean, it's just no different. It's
Yeah.
a product.
It's a product, and so is this apparently now. I see the credits rolling.
Aw.
I'd like to thank you all for watching. Tune in again next Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Until then, this is Rich.
And Jeannie.
Ciao.